Member for St. John South, Mount Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today as a Newfoundlander with a particular interest in the Newfoundland and Labrador fisheries. Last week, for example, I introduced my own private member's bill, the Newfoundland and Labrador Fishery Rebuilding Act. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to speak on the dismantling of the Canadian Wheat Board, to speak out against the dismantling of the Canadian Wheat Board, to warn against the dismantling of the Canadian Wheat Board. The bays and harbours, the cliffs and crags, the fishing grounds of Newfoundland and Labrador may be a world away from the western provinces, but fishing and farming have much in common these days across Canada. What fishing and farming have most in common at this particular moment in our history is that they're under direct attack by the Conservative government. In the prairies, the Conservatives are attacking the livelihood of farmers with their attempts to kill off the Canadian Wheat Board. On the west and east coasts, the fisheries are their target, with ongoing moves to gut what's left, the little that's left, of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. What the Conservative government should realize, what the Conservative government must realize, is that their buddies on Bay Street cannot feed Canadian families. That's a simple fact of life. And so I don't understand why the Conservatives have it in for Canada's primary producers, fishermen and farmers. Why? Who will that benefit? Who will that threaten? Ultimately, such actions could jeopardize our food supply, could threaten the family farm, the family fishing enterprise. Both could be threatened. The small businesses that this country was built on. As a Newfoundlander and Labradorian, I'm particularly baffled over why the Canadian Wheat Board is being targeted. I'm baffled by that. At the same time that the federal Conservatives are attempting to kill off the Wheat Board, at the very same time, back home in my home province, the provincial government, the progressive Conservative government, is moving towards the creation of a marketing board for fish. So the federal Conservatives are killing off the Wheat Board, which markets and brands Canadian wheat and barley around the world, at the same time that the provincial PCs in Newfoundland and Labrador are attempting to create a similar type fish board to market and brand our seafood around the world. That doesn't make sense to me. If anything, it shows that there should be more study, more investigation, more review, so the smart decisions are being made. The federal Conservatives are killing the Wheat Board while the provincial PCs are birthing a fish board. I just don't get it. How does that make sense? The responsible thing to do, the right thing to do, would be to carry out a cost-benefit analysis. The Canadian Wheat Board is the largest and most successful grain marketing company in the world. That's a fact. It's indisputable. It's also a fact that the Wheat Board is a Canadian success story with a proven track record of providing the best possible returns for farmers and minimizing their risk. Why mess with a good thing? Why mess with something that's working? As the honourable member for Winnipeg Centre has pointed out in this House on numerous occasions, and this is a point, by the way, that has resonated with me, Mr. Speaker, and it should resonate with everybody in this House and with all Canadians. The point that should resonate is that there has never been one shred of evidence, not one shred of evidence, that farmers will be better off without the Wheat Board. Not one shred of evidence. So how can the Conservative government, which bills itself as being a great steward of the Canadian economy in these tough economic times, that will only get tougher, that are destined to get tougher, how can the Conservative government be so reckless and irresponsible, to use two other words from the member for Winnipeg Centre, as to turn the prairie farm economy on its head without even doing a cost-benefit analysis? That does not make sense to me. It makes no sense. Bill C-18 proposes to dismantle the farmer-controlled and funded Canadian Wheat Board by eliminating the single-desk marketing of wheat and barley across Canada. But do farmers want that? Do farmers want that? Apparently not. I would say they don't. On September the 12th, a majority of farmers voted to keep the wheat board in a plebiscite. They voted through a plebiscite to keep the wheat board. A total of 38,261 farmers submitted mail-in ballots during that plebiscite, and it had a participation rate of 56%, which was, I understand, on par with the last three federal elections. The result was that 62% of respondents voted in favor of retaining the single desk for wheat, while 51% voted to retain it for barley. Alan Oberg, chair of the Wheat Board's farmer-controlled board of directors, reacted by saying this: "Farmers have spoken. Their message is loud, their message is clear, and the government must listen." Emphasis on must. The quote continues, "Western Canadian producers have voted to keep their single-desk marketing system for wheat and barley. They cannot be ignored." Emphasis again on cannot. Cannot be ignored. Sure, they can be ignored. Have they not heard of this Conservative government? Of course they can be ignored. For years, fishermen on the east coast of Canada, the fishermen of Newfoundland and Labrador, warned for years that they weren't being listened to. The fishery eventually collapsed. One of the largest fishing companies, Fishery Products International, was later broken up and sold off piecemeal, including the marketing arm of Fishery Products International, FPI. Today, as it stands, our province is moving towards a marketing board for Newfoundland and Labrador seafood products. The Conservative government is trying to move away from it. The Newfoundland and Labrador PCs are moving toward it. Part of the marketing strategy would be to set up a council to promote Newfoundland and Labrador seafood in general. The government would also facilitate a consortium of companies so they can work together on branding their products, on branding their seafood products. Maybe they'll even call it the Canadian Fish Board. Wouldn't that be ironic? I say, the New Democrats say, the Conservative government should withdraw Bill C-18. In the interest of large American grain companies, the Conservatives are meddling to erode prices and market security for our own farmers. For our own farmers. The Canadian Wheat Board is a single desk. Farmers in Western Canada sell their wheat and barley together through the Wheat Board, their sole marketing agent. The structure helps ensure farmers get their highest overall return, as they have an effective monopoly on the sales. Farmers have more strength when they act as one. Just makes sense. Farmers have more strength. Fishermen have more strength when they act as one. Newfoundland and Labrador fishermen know this. Prairie farmers know this. Why does the Conservative government not know this? Western grain farmers can look to Australia to know what's in store for them once the single desk is eliminated. It's not pretty. When Australia had its single desk power, Australian wheat could command premiums of over $99 a ton over American wheat. But by December 2008, it had dropped to a discount of $27 a ton over U.S. wheat. In 3 short years, Australians' 40,000 wheat farmers went from running their own grain marketing system, selling virtually all of Australians' wheat, to becoming mere customers of Cargill's, one of the largest agribusiness corporations which is privately owned by the U.S. If we're not careful, the family farm, the family fishing enterprises of this great country will be no more. Learn from the mistakes of the East Coast fishery, the Newfoundland and Labrador fishery. Listen to fishermen. Listen to farmers. We're stronger. Hear me. We're stronger, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order.